Welcome to a very special Marketing O Talk with a very special guest. You may have heard of him, Barry Schwartz.
Thanks for having me. I see I'm on your laptop also.
Yes. Thank you for allowing your name, image, and likeness. We had some stickers. People were really in demand of these things. And everybody asked for these stickers, and then nobody actually shared any pictures of them. So sometimes your merch drops don't go as planned.
It sounds very SEO-y to like ask for stuff and not.
Did you see anybody sharing like your face on their computer?
Not this specific one, but people do send me weird stuff often.
Usually like all the PPC stickers we do are like just huge hits.
Interesting.
But SEOs.
SEOs are weird.
Well, you said that.
I did.
SEOs are weird from Barry Schwartz. But honestly, I think if anybody's listening to this, first off, this is not going to be like any other interview you've done. I promise you that. And most people, if you don't know, you can listen to any other interview and hear your full backstory. But I want to know, you are self-proclaimed not an SEO. SEO is your hobby, correct? Am I putting any words in your mouth there?
No.
So why do you think you're so drawn to SEO and the SEO community, knowing that you don't provide SEO services? It's not your full-time job, which is, development.
That's a good question. So I'm lucky in that my business, supports me financially the way I need it to be supported. I have people in place that really are able to do what they do, and they do a great job. To be fair, I do wake up at 5 a.m. and do this well before the normal business hours. But, I'm here today throughout, yesterday and today, and I'm able to do this because I have a great team. So they handle all the more important stuff. And then I'm able to like do my hobby more often. So people like playing golf, people like going swimming, people like to listen to music. I don't like any of the normal stuff. I like SEO, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to write about it and talk about it and follow it without having any financial incentive or bias associated with it, which I think makes it a little bit better for people. They don't have to worry that I'm saying something because it might benefit me to say it.
I completely agree. When we talk to people, we have to say, it sounds like I would say this because I'm trying to sell you something, but I'm not. Like, you don't have to say that. So does that help, do you find, when you're dealing with clients or different folks out there and they're asking for something?
Yeah, it helps me on both fronts, meaning Google doesn't think I have any biases, and they could tell me stuff maybe like an hour before they announce it sometimes, so I get a scoop. At the same time, SEOs also don't think I'm like trying to like, the example I give a lot around this is like when Google came out with their widget link protocol and saying widget links are against their guidelines, yada, yada. And then you have all these other blogs coming out that from SEO companies that have done link building using widget links and saying, well, maybe Google says this type of this link in a widget is bad, but these types of links and these types of widgets are okay. And they try to like skew it to their own benefit because they're making money doing this. So I get why they do it. And if they're making money doing it, they don't want to say something that might hurt their business. But I don't have really any of that bias. And I think it helps because I could just write the way I feel without any of those financial biases.
Yeah, one of my favorite widget bait, just as a tangent, Matt Inman's post over on SEO Moz back in the day, I think it was called Widget Bait Gone Wild.
Okay.
That was fascinating. It was like height of widget bait. And I think, what is it, Mingle 2 or something? He had this dating site and was the absolute king of widgets. And then like everything.
I remember the SEO conference right after that. It was like people were like devastated because it was just so easy to use these things and get some nice links.
And I know that you and your brother were in high school when you first started RustyBrick. You were basically building things for people, correct?
Yep.
And then you were keeping track of changes on like Alta Vista and all these different search engines, and Search Engine Roundtable was born.
Search Engine Roundtable was born. I probably was like a lurker in the SEO forums for about a year. Then I started to like participate a little bit and really start to understand stuff. And then I went to my first conference, SCS Chicago, I forgot what year, maybe 2002, 2003. And I'm like, I'm going to start the blog at the conference to cover what people were doing, live blogging before anybody really did live blogging. And I started meeting people that way. And I really the premise was around basically keeping a journal of what people are saying in the community so that people don't have to like scour through the forums, or if they miss a conference, they won't miss something big.
Nice. A question. Have you ever contemplated selling SEO services?
I did. And then I didn't.
And we heard some of the pros of not doing that. What eventually like led you that route?
To not?
Yes.
I find it something hard to sell. So I think when somebody hires an SEO company, they are hiring them with the intent of driving more traffic and more leads and conversions and higher rankings generally to their website. The problem is you don't control, you can do everything perfect in accordance to whatever the best SEO methods are out there. And Google could then flip the switch one day and all that could be gone. So it's hard to, in my opinion, to sell something that you can't 100% deliver on. When we build software, it's something that we could deliver on. Here's the spec, we'll build it. We'll make it better than the spec or whatever it might be. But when even with PPC, like you can control most of that for the most part. But with SEO, you really can't control it. And I have a hard time selling something that you really can't control, even if you're the best SEO in the world. Many of the best SEOs have, been penalized or so their rankings drop. And at the same time, I'm like, my business is doing well the way it is. And I have this whole thing where I'm able to write stuff without the bias around it. So I figured just stay that way.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I always know you never did that, but never really heard the backstory behind it. You really kind of stood out to me and inspired me early on and a lot of other folks in the community. I would lovingly say this, that I'd say that your writing is progress over perfection in a way. Did you ever see yourself becoming a journalist?
No, never. If you would tell my high school English teacher or even my professor in English classes in college that I would do writing and people would be reading it, they would probably laugh. I mean, it's gotten better over the years in terms of my typos and grammar mistakes, but it's still pretty bad. Sometimes I'll look back at what I wrote a day or two later. Sometimes I rarely look at anything I write. I'll publish it and not look back. But if I ever have the reason to look back because somebody told me there was a mistake with a link or something, I'll look and be like, oh my God, I can't believe I wrote that. Sometimes a conversation I'm having on the phone while I'm typing gets into the blog post, has nothing to do with the blog post. And I'm like, I'm like talking to somebody while I'm typing like a story, and I don't know how I do both. And sometimes it just gets in there and it shouldn't be there. And sometimes it's just poor mistakes, like stupid, like spelling mistakes, or I'm writing one word, but I really meant to write the different word. I don't know how that happens, but I write so fast that it's low quality, low value content.
It is not. It's high value from the insights that you have in your brain. But I would say that really helped me get some confidence to write for search engine land.
So a person who can't write shows that they can't write, and they go, I can't write.
I was the same exact person.
No,
I was the worst writer in my family. My mother was a teacher. She, in a million years, would never think that I could write for like a publication or something like that. And then, here I am doing that, which is pretty cool. And so what would you say to people out there listening right now that are afraid or don't think they're the best writers? Like, what would you tell them?
Go out of your comfort zone on everything. I'm not a people person. People say they're antisocial. They'd rather be alone in a dark room by themselves. I'm that type of person. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to a conference. It makes me uncomfortable. I'll do it. The first time I've spoken with anybody on a stage at a conference was at a PubCon in a super session with 5,000 people watching you. Now, I speak pretty well. I mean, people say I talk too fast. I mumble. But I'm comfortable. I never did any training. I probably should have done training on talking. But I say do whatever you can to be out of your comfort zone. If you don't think you're a good writer, write. You'll get better. Anything you do over and over again, you'll just get better at it. And then people will tell you how bad you are and you'll improve yourself.
So you listening out there with that thought in your head, so many reasons not to do it, you don't have an excuse. Barry just told you to do it.
I never say you can't. You can't stand when people say, I can't. You could do something. You could Google it. Can't do heart surgery. Can't do brain surgery. Just Google it. I'm sure somebody's did brain surgery on YouTube.
I don't know about that. I'm not going to co-sign that one. We'll say, jump ahead to a different question. So I know that when people interview you, most people probably say like, oh, how can you do what you do? So as a seasoned journalist myself, I'm not going to ask you that. Instead, I know you're a humble guy, but let's put that aside. Why do you think that people think they can't do what you do?
Because people have hobbies and like to not work. This is what I enjoy doing. So for me, it's something that I look forward to. Whereas they find it to be a job. And people who like that's their 9 to 5, they look at the hours they have in the day and they say, my 9 to 5 is filled with this, this, and this. I don't have time to do it in that time frame. But if you love something and you love doing something, you'll just do it whenever something pops up. Like I could be on a client call with my real work, which I absolutely love as well. And something could be breaking on a Google story. And I'll be like, okay, I'm going to write this while I'm on the call. And because I have a good team behind me, obviously. Yeah. Or I'll be driving up to, Buffalo and I'll have to stop on the way and pull over and, do in the backseat of the car. People are like, why would you do that? I'm like, well, it has to get done. So just do it.
You really have to love what you're doing.
Right. Or feel there's a responsibility. Like now it feels more of a little bit of, I love it, but there's also this responsibility. Like if I don't cover something within 5 minutes that Google announced, people are like, Barry, what's wrong with you? Like, why haven't you covered it yet? So there's that responsibility of having to do it. But at the same time, I enjoy it. I like breaking this stuff fast and writing about it with lots of typos.
I think that to me, you're obviously like a true unicorn SEO. I'd say that Danny Sullivan was as well in the journalistic space. And I know that whenever I hear you talk or you're talking about something or what you're amplifying is that you really kind of just, your stance is that you appreciate people putting out content and trying to help. Is that accurate?
100%, yeah.
Do you think that the majority of the SEO space specifically thinks in that format that you do?
Before they write something?
Do you think that people, when they see content coming out, that they are appreciative of that?
I don't know.
I feel like you have a very different attitude.
I mean, I guess most SEOs or search marketers who are Googling something to get an answer, they'll probably read it. Do they appreciate somebody wrote it? Do they think, oh, thank you for writing it? Truth is probably not. It's interesting because I met somebody a while ago who says, oh, I read this great publication. It's this, and they talk about this, and that. I'm like, yeah, right there. It's like, yeah, I don't really know who the writers are. I just read it and it's great, but I don't know who the people are. So I don't know if they appreciate the person or the content. Like this is something I'm saying. They don't necessarily appreciate me for writing it. They appreciate that it's there.
Maybe I didn't phrase that the right way, but I feel like again, when somebody puts something out, you're like your attitude and from what you've talked about before, and I think you mentioned on the Zeem Digital podcast, is just like you're all for it for people trying to help. And I feel like when I talk to the younger folks, and we have a lot of people that are kind of like growing in the space here at our company, that a lot of times they're nervous that people are going to be brutal in the industry, like on Twitter, and they're going to roast things, and that there's a lot of negativity here. But I feel like that's not who you are.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of negativity on socials, Twitter, especially on YouTube, I'm sure. People are pretty nasty, but you can't let that get to you. People should be, obviously, people say this all the time, just focus around the positivity of what you do and not look at the negativity. I kind of enjoy the negativity because I'm weird. But I think that shouldn't make you shy away from it or sharing something. People are going to make mistakes. I've said stuff that was crazy. Just the other week, 2 weeks ago, I get a email or a private comment from somebody that watches my video every week and comments all the time and says, I was so insulted by you. I can't believe you did this to me. And I can't believe you responded this way. And I look back, he deleted his tweets, but he tweeted at me asking me if something's new or something that he spotted as new, sharing a screenshot. And I said, I don't know. It could be. ? But then I wrote, I believe you, I trust you. And he took that to mean that I was being sarcastic and making fun of him. I'm like, no, I just meant like, I don't know I really didn't know if it was real or if it was new. And he just took it the wrong way. So I'm like, now I'm thinking like when I respond to people, is this comment going to be taken the wrong way? I don't have time for that necessarily,
Yeah.
but I didn't mean it at all. And people can always misconstrue what you say and take that as being mean. And I think we've seen John Mueller do that. You've seen myself do that. People will then take that and say, you meant this or you meant that. And you really weren't even thinking that in a mean way. That's the concern, I guess.
And you're doing a billion different things at the same time. You're trying to, respond to somebody. I totally get that. So your company, RustyBrick, mainly a software company. And I just want to say that I've utilized and have been a user of Rusty Budget in the past, which is sort of like a publishing tool, like a scheduler. What's the favorite thing you've ever built?
For me, the thing that I use the most, I use Rusty Budget a lot. And I'm huge. I mean, that's how I keep track of stuff, but nobody else uses it. It's just me, only me. The team used to use it, but now there's a new team there. And we use Slack mostly. But personally, what I use the most that I've built is probably one of our Jewish mobile apps, a sitter prayer book.
Nice.
So I pray with that multiple times a day, find stuff with it. So it's useful for me. Outside of what I think is like some of the best stuff that I personally use that I didn't build for what I do is Feedly, formerly Google Reader. Can't believe they got rid of that. But I'm a big fan of Feedly.
I know that also you take a lot of pride in just reporting the news, being unbiased, and having no takes. I feel like this is like the exact polar opposite of me. Like, do you ever find yourself having a take and like stifling it and not putting out like what you really think about a change?
I really have no emotional reaction to anything ever. And it bugs my wife. It bugs people that I know that I don't react to stuff. and she hates when I say this, so hopefully she won't listen to this. But basically, she probably won't listen to this, so I'm not worried about it. But I really have no reaction or emotion about anything. It's like I'm a complete void. And I think I blame the SEO community for doing that to me because the amount of, no, I'm just joking.
Just abused for 10 years on Twitter.
So I'm numb to everything. So when Google like announces something, I see the pros and cons to it. I'll write why, how it could be helpful or how it's a pain in the neck. And it's funny because like Rand Fishkin is like one of the biggest critics of my writing because, he writes really long stuff.
Oh yeah. He's great.
Research. He's a great writer and he puts a lot of emotion into it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I will write stuff because I'm pushed to write why it really like a deeper thing on that. So maybe around, I don't know, he will like praise me when I write something really long and detailed showing like some level of emotion, but it's not my style. Mm-hmm. One is I don't have time for it. It just takes too much time.
And it's like needed too, just having the news and not, and I see people criticizing you like, oh, you didn't say this. You're just, I get that. And I feel like you're in a good spot where half the people think you're too pro Google, half the people think you're too un-Google.
Yeah. All the Googlers think I hate them and all the SEOs think I love Google. So
I just out of curiosity, remember when the switch was made, I was in Rochester listening to Webmaster Radio from the Search Engine Watch and Search Engine Strategy days to when it was announced. I forget what show it was. It Chicago? No, it might not have been Chicago, but I remember I was listening to Jim Hedger and somebody talking about it was a big announcement when everything switched.
Yeah.
And you went to SMX and Search Engine Land, created that on your own with Danny. So can you tell me what that was like or what you remember from your point of view?
What was that like? Okay, so I joined Danny and Chris Sherman when Gary Price left that company to work at Ask Jeeves, which obviously wasn't a great move because then Barry Diller bought them and killed the whole thcome. Anyway, so I joined, and then a couple of years later, I forgot how long it was, Danny's like, I kind of got in an argument, or not, they didn't come to terms with when they sold the company to another company, and he was like, I'm just not happy and I'm going to start a new one. Who wants to come with me? I understand if any of you don't want to come, I totally understand it, but if you want to come, you're more than welcome. Me, Greg Sterling and myself, we're like, no, it's a no-brainer. We have money coming from other sources. We don't have to care about our salaries from the peanuts we got paid anyway from doing that writing. And then we just like, yeah, we're with you no matter what.
So was it like Jerry Maguire moment where he's like, who's coming with me? And you guys just all stand up? For
Greg and myself, it was because we had other sources of income. So it wasn't like we're dropping everything, losing our paycheck and going to that. It was just like, we did this because it was fun. It was, we didn't do this for like, it was a hobby. It was fun. So we like, it's a no-brainer. We're coming. I think it was first myself and Chris Sherman and Danny. I think I'm not sure who else came along right away. And then Greg's like, I want to come too. And we're like, oh, great. Some people stayed because contractually they had to stay for a while. And some people said, I need a paycheck. I'm going to stay for a while. Mm-hmm. And then eventually a lot of them came over anyway to Search Engine Land. It was fun. It was fun starting a brand new site from scratch and making it the authority in a short period of time.
Real quick.
Yeah. And obviously Danny is the authority. Whatever he writes is gold. And now whatever he writes is just sold out content.
Oh, wow.
I'm just joking.
No, yeah. I miss Danny. I miss Danny's writing. Like he really hit that, we talk about the whimsical, emotional stuff, but did it in such a fair way. And it was literally the funniest person.
And he wrote it fast. He wrote it so fast. There was typos everywhere and he cleaned it up later, but he was able to like Google announce something. He gave like the searcher perspective, the SEO perspective. He took his time. He did it really thoroughly.
Yeah.
And sadly, the community lost that, and people looked at me to replace that. And it's not my style.
Yeah.
I'm just going to report the news as dry and boring as possible, and you could do whatever you want with it. But we are at a loss, and nobody really could step up for that. And hopefully one day somebody will.
Yeah. And almost similar on the PPC side too, with Ginny heading over. I feel like she at least would give, when she'd cover things, there'd be enough. You could really tell what she was thinking in there, but she was really fair and everything. And like, I'm not fair. I'm a lunatic when we have our shows, but like, I feel like, those are two voices that are missed for sure.
Yeah.
Who do you think it would be that could step up?
I think you could step up for Ginny.
No, for SEO.
For SEO. I don't know. Nobody has really. I don't know if we need it necessarily. And maybe we do. It's fun to read. It's hard. It's not me. I just don't have time. So
then everything there, pretty smooth sailing, quick. SEO jumped up, Search Engine Watch, and SES kind of went away, and SMX is, kind of became the go-to conference there.
Yeah, it was pretty quick. I remember like early days, it was a little bit more of a struggle because of the finances and stuff. I think I wasn't involved so much in the financial side, but they were throwing these big conferences and it cost a lot to throw them. And the attendance was really growing nicely. Obviously, Google loved Danny and they supported. I think Matt Cutts came to all the conferences and stuff like that early on. So it was all very good stuff. And it was great. I mean, the team early days it was amazing. It was a lot of fun.
And off the top of your head, what was one of your most favorite or most memorable times or events within one of the SMX shows itself? Is there anything that you're thinking back really stands out like, oh, that was a really great time?
The thing that stands out the most is when I knew that it was Danny's last XMX conference because he told us ahead of time that he's leaving. And watching him do his last sessions that he was so good at in terms of like ask the SEOs, ask the Googlers and stuff like that. Seeing that and seeing that nobody else realized that he was going away, that was like stood out to me of like, it's the end of an era. Like the way he spoke on stage and stuff like that, it was like, who's going to do that going forward?
You can't replace that.
No, we haven't. And then COVID hit and we haven't really had any in-person sessions. So I mean, it was interesting. I think, we tried different things, but that was probably the most memorable. People sitting here enjoying this conference, enjoying Danny on stage, they're not going to get that.
Yeah. One of my most memorable shows was, I think it might have been like 2008 SMX Advanced in Seattle in that weird kind of room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think it was one where there was like that rant that somebody recorded of Danny.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that, where he's just going off and somebody's recorded the rant. And there was
he goes off. He has his rant. So.
But it was like one of the most epic ones, I feel like. And I was just like sitting there in awe. And I feel like I'm, modeled a lot of kind of like what we try to do. Like it was just such a way to, I was just like enthralled with what he was saying.
Your rants are similar to that. So if you listen,
I just copied them.
Well, it's, best type of flattery. And it's interesting. He used to do these email response rants also. So if we get like some weird spammy, remember those? And he used to reply all with some like, Danny, how do you have time to respond to this spammer? He's not going to even read it anyway. He's like, he's a ranter. He's like, for me, I just hit delete. So I don't know.
Like, first off, no, we're not Google. Second off, no, SEO isn't your problem. What your problem really is X, Y, and Z. Third off, it's great. So definitely miss Danny on that. Last main question here for you. I obviously love Azim, and on the Azim Digital Podcast you were on last year, you had given the advice to build something that you're really proud of, and then to look back and really take that in. So what do you think as you look back on the work that you've done here in the industry for the last 20 years?
I hope it's helped people. I hope people, have been able to grow their careers with the content. It's easier when it comes to the conferences and doing these video interviews with people, because I'll hear immediately within like 2 years from people saying, because you got me at this conference, or because you helped me write this, or because you got me to help write at Search Engine Land, or because you interviewed me on the Search Engine Roundtable vlog, I was able to find a new job that paid me a lot more, that able to help me support my families better. That's probably the most meaningful thing, that I make an impact on people's careers that trickle down to helping them with their families. So I think that is the most important thing to it. And have I done that? I think for some people, and some people have told me, I'm sure I've done it for people who haven't told me, and I'm sure I've hurt people's jobs as well at the same time, because I may have said things that may have hurt companies, or reported something that may have hurt their business strategies and stuff like that. So for everything that I've maybe done that was good, I've probably done some stuff that was bad. And I try not to get too bogged down about thinking about that, because that can make probably somebody crazy.
Yeah. Well, let me give you a little news flash here. If you've got that pendulum of good versus bad, you are all the way good with what you've done to the community.
Well, thank you.
Everybody I know really appreciate it. And then you even have profiles of people in the space. It's like,
that was
unbelievable.
Yeah. That was because we were going through a tough time in the community, and some have, passed away for, stressful reasons. And I figured people just need to be told that they matter. And often we just take people for granted. I don't need to be told that. I don't care. Some people need to be, before it's too late, just tell people, if somebody helped you or they help you in the future, just mention them on Twitter or on a social, or email them and say thank you for whatever, because it means a lot to those people. You never know if it's going to be too late for you to tell them.
Absolutely. I've got a segment here called Embarrassing Story Time, and I've got an embarrassing story for you.
Okay.
It was SMX Social. I think it was 2008. I don't know. It was the New York City one where it was up there. We talked about it on your show. Like Neil Patel was there, Chris Winfield, Brent Stores, all that. I was fairly new to the industry, been doing it for a while, but not really going to events. I sat next to you at lunch and I was too embarrassed to talk to you. And you sat down eating your lunch and I'm like, oh my gosh, like he's going to tell me like, get out of here. But you're like the nicest person in the world. And I still didn't have enough like courage to talk to you, but you were like super nice. And I was like, oh, you know what? People are really nice. I represent just people.
If you didn't talk to me, how do you know I was nice?
Because you were very courteous. You were just talking to people there, saying, hey, you're doing some stuff, but you're just like the nicest dude.
I get that a lot of people are afraid to come over to me for some reason. And I kind of give off that, even like outside of the search world, people get that from me because I'm just focused on like what I'm doing. Somebody just messaged me this morning saying, people ask me if I ever met Barry, he said, and I say, I did, but not really. Basically, I can't find the tweet now, but basically he mentioned that he always sees me and I'm always typing in the corner or something and he's afraid to come over because he doesn't want to disturb me. I'm like, disturb me, it's fine. I'm not very outward going, but if people are there, I'll talk to them. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Another segment before we get to our lightning round here. This is called On the Hot Seat. You know who's on the hot seat?
I guess me.
SEOs. Do you know why? You've got a new hobby, potentially. And could this replace SEO? Can you tell us about Lucid and the new project you've got on that side of things?
Yeah, it's not going to replace SEO. Although I think I'll probably make money off of this one because SEOs don't click on ads and stuff. It's basically Lucid Motors is a company that's been around for some time. They're basically the new version of Tesla. Mm-hmm. And most of the employees have come from Tesla or from other car manufacturers. And they're basically building kind of like a luxury version of a Tesla that has way more range and all that fun stuff. It's not the fastest car. The Plaid is still a little faster than it in terms of 0 to 60, but who really drives 0 to 60 that fast?
I don't know.
In any event, so I fascinated with the car. As I dug into more research, I found some Lucid owner forums, like behind the scenes. Reminds me of the old days of the SEO forums where people were trying to like predict what's going to happen with the company, not just the stock, but like when the car's going to come out. Now the cars are starting to come out. And people are like commenting about all the weird quirks and bugs around it. I find it pretty fascinating. So I'm really active in those communities as much as I can be. And I figured, you know what? I'll buy the car. It's super expensive. And I feel horrible about spending so much money on a car. So I'm like, how can I potentially make money off of it in the future? So I'm like, I'll start a blog and kind of make a journal of it. But I think the Lucid blog can make money because, again, it's more of a consumer type of product that's luxury that could potentially drive ads in the future. Not that I'm curious about it now. I'm not probably won't put ads on it for years. Mm-hmm. But I think it's just a way for me to chronicle. It's just kind of the journey of Lucid Motors getting into the space. And I think it's a lot of fun.
Great. And it's lucidinsider.com, correct?
Yes. Please point to all the DA that way.
There we go. And so just to calm everybody's fears here, SEO has been your hobby. You don't see Lucid replacing SEO. So we can all take a collective breath here because we lost Danny, we lost Jenny, we can't lose you.
I'm using this channel right now to formally resign from the SEO community. No, I don't think it's going to replace. Also, the other thing was like I really wanted to see what it's like to start a new thing from the scratch from the SEO perspective of how long does this Google for Google to rank it, to index it, to crawl it, all that type of fun stuff. And it's been really interesting and it's given me a whole new perspective on stuff that I probably experienced 20 years ago when I first started the blog, but I'm re-experiencing it, which is pretty cool. Which is why Danny Sullivan used to give the intro to SEO session back in the early days of the SES conferences because it kind of said it grounded him and tried to make him think about the basics, which some experts don't think about. I don't think about the basics so often, so it's been helpful.
All right, now we're on to our lightning round. What is the favorite time you've ever covered in search?
It's tough. There's so many. There's so many memorable ones. One got me onto Brian Williams before his scandal. So I was interviewed.
Got a question coming up on that.
So that got me on his show with basically Google Universal Search, which is I found before most people. Second was wild that I wrote a story about how a boyfriend and a girlfriend used spam Google image search of pictures of her boyfriend with memes. And I thought it was this normal high schooler basically went ahead and used Google this is like 15 years ago. It was a long time ago. Used Google to like get back at her boyfriend. And I thought that was a cool SEO story. And then it got onto like one of these massive gossip blogs. It went crazy viral. I got a phone call, an email from the parents saying, you got to remove it. I'm like, it's out there. Once it's too late. It's like the only URL I ever blocked in my robots.txt file. So you want to check it out, just go to scroundtable.com/robots.txt. But there's so many. The time frames, it's like the early days of spamming and jamming, like in the early 2000s. than maybe the Panda and Penguin days, which is like, wow, like SEO is changing forever. Probably the most interesting times.
Pre Bruno 19, and you kind of alluded to this earlier. How many times have you stopped your drive and pulled over to write a story?
Less than 20?
Okay. I'm on these channels with you, and you're always like, oh, pull over and knock this out. You knock
it could have been more than 20. I don't really know. It's been so many years, it's hard to say.
Next up, you started and work at RustyBrick with your twin brother. Your handle on social and your nickname is RustyBrick. What's his nickname?
It's not my nickname. It's just a handle I use.
If he had a handle, what would it be?
I assume RustyBrick also. I mean, there's nothing to it really. We have no nicknames.
What about oxidized cinder block?
That's fine.
Mossy paver?
Sure.
Corroded cube?
Corroded cube. That's a good one.
You recently won a Marketing O'Clock Clocksker for SEO Follow of the Year. A huge congratulations on winning what must be the most prodigious award of your lifetime. Question for you. Who is your favorite SEO follow and why is it Glenn Gabe?
So you answered the question, I guess. Glenn Gabe's great. He understands SEO in a deep way that some people might not. It's not like, it's interesting. It's not like a job it's his job, but he's so devoted to it. Like it's so personal to him. So he's a great follow. He's a great follow.
In 2012, you put out an article called Google's Penguin and Panda Updates Are My Fault? ? And you pulled in a message that came through to your website. The message that you got says, "You miserable prick. You continue your Google," we'll say butt licking, "as Google boots every one of us from the SERPs. I shall spit on your face next time we meet. Panda and Penguin are designed to hurt non-advertisers and help brands." Did you ever meet that person and did they spit on your face?
So that was a pretty calm email. And I don't think nobody ever spit on my face. So no, I don't think that I met that person. I've gotten death threats. Like, I'm going to come to the conference and shoot you while you're on stage. Yeah, I've gotten things like that. And I'm like thinking, should I be concerned? I'm like, who in their right mind would actually go in a public conference and shoot somebody on stage with all those witnesses?
I think that the main thing there is in the right mind. It doesn't seem like...
Yeah, I don't think they would probably be smart about it and maybe shoot me like in an elevator with nobody around or something. But I get it. I get why, if it hurts people's businesses, these updates, I'm the deliverer, I'm the messenger on some level. I get they need to take it out on somebody, but I didn't press that button.
I agree. Is it true that at one PubCon you were invited to a Yahoo party at Hugh Hefner's suite?
True. Do you want more details or what? I don't go to parties, and if I have to go to parties, I'm the first one there and the first one out. So I took a couple photos. I said thank you to the hosts. I believe I was on a bed with Rand Fishkin and Andrew Goodman. It was a circular bed that's
I've seen those pictures, I believe.
And after that, I left. I thanked everybody, and then supposedly it got pretty wild after I left.
I could imagine that happening. Have you ever read Paradox of Choice?
No, but I should. Some smart guy. He's like one who ranks for my name.
Well, he's Barry Schwartz.
He actually spoke. He gave a Google talk, and when Danny got his job at Google, he let me do a Google talk. So now there's two Barry Schwartzes that gave Google talks.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
In an AMA on Reddit from 8 years ago, there was a conversation that you had with a user named Very Cheeky. Do you recall this?
No.
Very Cheeky said, "Hi, Barry. How soon do you think everyone will be using Google Glasses or the like?" Your answer was, "Isn't everyone wearing them now? I do. Seriously, I cannot see the current Google Glass version being adopted more broadly than by geeks like me." Would you like to apologize, Barry?
I have two actually in my desk because one broke. So that's awesome you pulled them out.
And lastly, wrapping up here, you've now experienced both. Who is the better interviewer, Brian Williams or myself?
There's you can't compare. I mean, you're way above and beyond. I sat with him for like an hour and I got maybe like 4 seconds of airtime of it. So.
Well, thank you so much for coming on to Marketing Clock, and thank you so much for your support. It means the world to us. Like you said, all those little comments add up. And if you don't follow Barry Schwartz on Twitter, obviously do that. RustyBrick is the tag everywhere, the handle everywhere, and subscribe on YouTube. We go really good together, our show, his show. And you've got also fantastic interviews, and it's a lot of up and coming people in the industry. And you can also catch a lot of us here from the show in Cypress North over there as well. Is there anything else you want to say to the audience? Anywhere people can find you?
First, of course, thank you and everything you do. You put out some amazing content. You've done so for so many years through many formats, from podcasts to written content and so forth. So, and obviously speaking. So thank you for everything you do and your company and your folks here. You do a great job with that. And I guess to follow me, just Twitter's the easiest at RustyBrick. And that's it.
And you can super follow him now at RustyBrick on Twitter. Barry, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.